Well, hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to my little gardening show. It's been a few weeks since we made any kind of videos out here. Been super busy with just living life. Anyway, we're out here. We've got a couple different decent frosts. That's pretty well killed everything or damaged the leaves anyway, to where the plants are well on their way to dying if they're not dead yet. So what we're doing, since it's a beautiful day, it's getting a little bit windy, but we're going to start cleaning out the garden. That's an important step because we want to get we basically want to prepare the garden for winter. We want to protect the soil if we can, so we're going to try to get a good cover mulch. I think at least 2 loads of leaves if possible this year. We only got one kind of big load last year. They covered about 2/3 of the garden, maybe 3/4 of it, in about a 3-inch layer of leaf mulch. I want to try to increase that. It really helped early in the spring, keeping the weeds down, and there's just a lot of benefits to cover mulching. Protecting the soil from the rays of the sun, protecting the ground from nutrients leaching away and stuff like that. Also give all the microorganisms in the soil some food to eat, and especially the macroorganisms like the earthworms and stuff. So we want to get a good 5-6 inch layer of leaf mulch on the ground if possible, to protect the soil. Other benefits, it's like compost tea. As winter snows and everything come against it, it's gonna break down, and those nutrients will slowly leach into the soil, again encouraging microbial activity and stuff like that. But before we can do all that, we have to get this garden cleaned up. We want to pull out the diseased plants, just get it cleaned up so it's easier to work in the spring. We don't have to worry about doing it in the spring. One of the downsides to doing that, getting everything out, is we're removing some of the protection for the spiders and maybe different little organisms that would be camping out somewhere in the garden. But that's okay. There's plenty of other places for them to camp out, and there's just a lot of stuff out here, so we don't have to really worry about that. So we're going to rip out. I'll just show you real quick if I can flip this camera around. So division of labor. This is helpful too, getting the kids involved, so I don't have to do anything. But what they're doing is ripping out the posts. Hey, there's metal ties around those things. You gotta watch for those. So the ones maybe you've ripped out, if you look at the base of the plants, there's these little metal ties on most of them. You want to collect them, they go in the white bucket. So we're getting the twisty ties off, the hardware.
Get the hard ones out.
Yep.
I don't know how we can. Oh, I found one.
And then we want to get the post off.
There, I got one.
You guys are making it more difficult on yourselves. We're going to pick all this up later.
There, Samuel.
That's all right.
Are these eggplants?
Once we get the supporting posts out, ties out. Hi, honey. We'll be able to start ripping plants out. Some of them, depending on their size, we'll just cut off at the base to leave the roots in and let them break down. Put that nutrients back in the soil. The ones that we can't do that with because they're too thick, we will pull out of the ground. The bigger roots will come with it. There'll still be some roots that are in the ground that are left with it, but that's okay. Tomatoes, we need to cut the strings away from the trellis and then pull all that. It should be pretty easy to pull that stuff off because it's pretty much dried out and dead.
I'm gonna pull this stuff up.
Yeah, you can pull these sticks out. Well, I maybe put them by the picnic table. So we'll get that all good to go. Some of this stuff we'll have to mow down, and then we've got some late potatoes that we need to dig. It's too wet to dig them today because of the rain, but we are going to dig those out. Now we don't really do much of a fall garden. we did a little bit of a late planting of like a second crop of green beans and then the potatoes. But the springs around here, I mean, typically what happens, or the falls around here, typically what happens is that it's pretty warm weather up through September, and then like in October, it's like the switch gets flipped and it goes from like 80s and stuff, 70s and 80s to like the 30s, and the weather's just not real conducive. And then there's a lot of straight line winds, and it ends up being like spring in reverse. And so the best thing to do is just put the garden to bed at this point. I don't have like a caterpillar tunnel. I don't have like, you know, the infrastructure to protect crops in that temperature range. And it gets cold enough too that even like the cold hardy stuff, a lot of that probably wouldn't do that well unless it had some kind of protection. And I'm just not out here enough. I got other things to do, other responsibilities that it's just not cost effective or worthwhile to mess with it. That may change in the future. We'll see. But again, we want to get this all ready for fall and then winter. And then the idea is to build soil. Long term, what I'd like to do, and this is all, I guess, more going along the long-term goals and stuff like that. I mean, or like ideal situation. But ideal situation would be that we wouldn't be tilling very much at all, if any. We'd have a nice cover mulch on the ground. We would dig where, yeah, you know, plant where we needed to, be able to get out here, keep it weed free. But I just don't have the time to do that, and it's not fair to my dad and my sister to put that on them to try to keep this thing going, because it's kind of a family effort. But ideally, getting a cover mulch, getting some cover crops in here so there's like a living root in the ground to attract the mycorrhizal fungi and help build the soil aggregates, change the biology in the soil as far as making it more fungal dominated instead of bacterial dominated. Long term, being able to do that, it's going to cut down on our weeds and on the pest pressure, because it's really windy. I don't know what the mic's picking up here, but if it's fungal dominated and the soil's good, the plants are going to be picking up full nutrients, reach a genetic potential. They're actually going to create more complex stuff. Their cell walls are going to be thicker, and then basically they're going to become unedible to like larvae of pests, because larvae of like you know, beetles, various things like that, a lot of them they can't digest complex sugars and stuff like that, and so they can't eat those kind of plants that are that healthy, and so you reduce your weed pressure. Yeah.
3 radishes combined. Because it's
Yeah,
3
that's
tons.
crazy, bud.
And then this.
That's crazy.
A carrot like
So anyway, we cut down on the pests that way, and then the plants are more resistant to disease. They just more nutrient dense vegetables. Yeah, it's one thing that's kind of interesting. You know, there's a lot of different ways people are growing food, and halfway decent in terms of nutrients, because they're doing like some kind of hydroponics or precision agriculture. You know, and to get produce that grows faster, it's more productive. You know, in the future, it could very well be like more indoor farms, like complexes. I think down in Cincinnati, they're building a big complex for like microgreens and all kinds of leafy vegetables and stuff like that they'll be able to produce like 365 days a year, 7 days a week, without having to use the pesticides. So I don't know, there's some interesting things that are happening, but as far as growing on a big scale like this, long term, if we can get cover mulch and we can build the soil and get it some plants in here to increase the mycorrhizal fungi and make it more fungal dominated, long term it's going to be better. We're going to have more success out here, and we're going to be less dependent on you know, the Mittleider weekly feed and stuff. That's how I've been supplementing right now, you know, as we've been tilling and stuff like that. We've been using a Mittleider gardening method, or kind of a hybrid approach. not following it to a T because, you know, the basic premise of the method is that the ground is just an anchor for the plants, and you know, you're basically giving the plants everything they need, and it doesn't matter what condition your soil's in. And that's all fine, well and dandy, and it does work, but long term it's not ideal. I don't know. I guess just fundamentally, I don't want to be dependent on you know, a bunch of inputs when if you can get the biology in the soil right. That nutrient cycle is going to take care of itself. I mean, all the nutrients you need is in pretty much any kind of soil on the planet. It's just that the microbiology, the biological activity isn't there to unlock the potential of the soil, unlock those nutrients. The mycorrhizal fungi is not there to break down, you know, take those exudates from the plants that would be in there, attract them, and in exchange, you know, giving them the nutrients they need. Having fungal dominating soil is a key to unlocking the fertility that's already there and getting that nutrient cycle going. One of the keys anyway, major key. So anyway, it's a balance. You know, you only have so much time and energy, and there's other things, and you know, and just do the best you can. So, but long term, it'd be nice to go in that direction. It's just getting there, having a plan. So anyway, we're gonna get started here. I'll probably, once we get it all done, pan back over with a little video to sum that all up. But for now, kids are working. That's good. We set like an hour deadline for ourselves. So I guess that's it for now. Until next time. Happy gardening.